Well, welcome to the 700 Club. A sea of humanity is slowly moving through Ukraine in a desperate attempt to flee the war. North of Kyiv is as many as 100,000 people. They may be trapped without water or electricity as Russian forces are bombarding the city.
More than 2 million people have already escaped, most of them women and children. George Thomas takes us to the border of Poland and Ukraine, where the greatest refugee crisis since World War II is unfolding.
Our destination this morning, the town of Rawaruska, just west of Lviv. The drive normally takes about 30 minutes, but nothing around here is normal. It's taking 4 to 5 hours now to reach this border town that straddles Ukraine and Poland because of this. Hundreds of cars, bumper to bumper, filled with women, children, and the elderly fleeing the conflict here. Because we are pressed, we get through the line fairly quickly, thanks to a Ukrainian military escort. A quarter of a mile from the border, we meet Irina Hadash, standing with so many others in the bitter cold, waiting to cross.
The last 3 days have been the most horrible days of my life.
Irina is here with her 2 children after escaping bombings just south of Kyiv. 10-year-old Mila is worried about her best friends back home.
They're not answering my text messages. The last few days, I have had many terrible emotions. I'm just praying they are okay, but right now I'm controlling my emotions.
Standing a few feet away, Anna Mikitenko and her 3 children. They were in an underground bunker in Kyiv for a week when she started to notice worrying signs.
They kept asking me, "Mama, when will this all end? Mama, how long will this go on for? Mama, why is this happening?"
Anna's daughter, Nastya, also 10, really misses her father.
Men who are between 18 and 16 years old cannot leave the country. They have to fight.
Alexander Stepaniuk, standing at the last Ukrainian border checkpoint, was overcome by emotion as he watched his wife, 2-year-old and 9-year-old walk across Poland.
Це просто жахливо.
This is terrible that in the 21st century something like this is happening. How can one man cause so much grief in a big European country? We did nothing to deserve this.
The UN says more than 1 million people so far have escaped from the central and eastern parts of Ukraine. Over 800,000 of them have walked right here through these gates. This is the Ukrainian border, and on the other side is Poland. And the future for them remains uncertain. Those unable to walk to the Polish border boarded buses, while tearful husbands watched and blew last kisses to loved ones.
I really don't want to leave my house, my city, and my country. I hope that everything will end and we will return home soon.
With her children by her side, Irina Hadash and a dozen others took their last few steps on Ukrainian soil and walked into an unknown future.
I have feelings of despair and fear, but I know I have to fight it to stay strong for my children.
George Thomas, CBN News on the Ukraine-Poland border.
Well, your heart goes out to those refugees, those families that are being separated, the women and children being forced into exile, becoming refugees, all because of what Russia is doing. And it's just a humanitarian crisis of massive proportion. Well, CBN, Operation Blessing, Orphans Promise, we're doing something about this. We want to help those in need, and we're doing it in your name. If we can get a map up, we're going to show you where Operation Blessing is going to be staging in Poland. We're looking at obtaining warehouse facilities so that we can supply large quantities of food and water. That's the primary need of the refugees. We're also been informed that baby formula, diapers, those kinds of things are an absolute need. So that's where we're going to be locating in Poland. But we've been there, and we've been there with Orphans Promise now for 20 years, and we can see the map. This is the regional map of all the various Orphan Promise offices, outreaches happening throughout Ukraine. Ukraine is where Orphans Promise started 20 years ago. So when we say we're staging in Poland, it's to supply these various centers so that we can handle the refugee crisis. We can support families who are trapped in Ukraine, and we're doing it all in your name. If you want to be a part of this effort, this is a 20-year effort, but right now we need help in order to supply the food, the water, formula, diapers, just the things that people are going to need, and they need them right now. So if you want to be a part of it, give us a call, 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can write to us, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Just put Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line of your check. You can text us, OB Crisis, to 71777. A giving page will come up. You can also go to cbn.com or ob.org. Either way, do it now. Be a part of it. 1-800-700-7000. Say, yes, you can count on me. I want to help in this. This is the biggest crisis Europe has seen since World War II. We're pre-positioned. We're ready to go, but we need the funds in order to get the supplies that these people so desperately need. So be a part of it. Say yes. 1-800-700-7000. Well, in other news, Ukraine's president is asking America to increase support for his country. Ephraim Graham has more on that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, in an exclusive interview with World News Tonight anchor David Muir, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky described Vladimir Putin as a beast with a never-ending appetite.
We are a place in Europe, a place of freedom, a zone of freedom. And everyone thinks that we are far away from America or Canada. No, we are this zone of freedom. Then you have to protect us, because we will come first, you will come second, because the more this beast will eat, he wants more, more, and more.
Ukraine's president also called on the United States Congress to take direct steps to help his country, saying, do it, and I think we'll win. Congressional leaders don't support a no-fly zone over Ukraine because of the risk of widening the war with a nuclear Russia. Still, they reportedly have agreed on legislation banning Russian oil. Democrat West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin calling it a moral imperative.
Going on over there and watching women and children being slaughtered. People that love freedom and democracy, and we're going to sit back and let that happen. We're supposed to be the defender of freedom.
A vote on the bill could come as soon as today. The Associated Press reports President Biden is ready to ban Russian oil imports today. It's a move he's been reluctant to take because of the threat of higher gas prices. And those fears are not unfounded. U.S. gas prices have hit a record high. The national average is now $4.17 a gallon. In California, drivers are paying more than $5 a gallon. Monday, oil prices hit their highest price since 2008, reaching $119 a barrel. It is not just gas and oil prices that are affected by the war either. Russia and Ukraine export about 25% of the world's wheat. The impact on production and shipping could double global wheat prices. The United Nations World Food Program warns that could have a catastrophic impact on the world's poorest nations. Now, all this is happening as Americans face the highest inflation in 40 years. That has state and federal lawmakers looking for solutions. Caitlin Burke shows us how Republicans and Democrats have different approaches to providing relief to American consumers.
Governors across the country are working to help people with the crushing weight of inflation, even if the fix is only temporary.
Lawmakers are very aware that inflation is eroding people's ability to pay. It's making a big difference for people. And a lot of lawmakers see tax policy as a way to address this problem.
Some governors are proposing tax rebates of up to $500, while others are looking to eliminate the sales tax on groceries or put a freeze on state gas taxes. Jared Walczak with the Tax Foundation says it's a bipartisan effort.
Republican lawmakers have been far more likely to focus on income tax cuts. They talk about the competitive advantage of businesses being able to invest at a lower cost, of driving people into the state rather than out of the state. Democratic lawmakers have been more likely to focus on sales tax rate reductions and providing relief during consumption.
Congress is also working to pass legislation they hope will provide more lasting relief.
You know, when I go fill up my gas tank, it's almost $5, and the price of groceries has gone up. So this is why we need to put more money in the pockets of the working class.
Congressman Ro Khanna told CBN News the Biden administration has a plan, and now it's time for Congress to act.
I mean, the prescription drug bill would be a big deal, to have Medicare negotiate to bring down the cost of prescription drugs. We all know the experience of having to pay too much out of pocket for drugs. The second thing is, again, the earned income tax credit expansion, or getting more money in the pockets of working families. And the third thing is looking at some gas tax holiday.
Republicans argue that Democrats' spending plans and policies are part of the reason for the soaring prices.
They were warned that spending trillions would lead to soaring inflation. They were told that their anti-energy policies would send gas prices to new heights, but they plowed ahead anyway, raising the price at the pump by 50% and pushing inflation to a 40-year high.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says the war in Ukraine could drive inflation even higher. However, the central bank is still planning to move forward with a series of interest rate increases over the next year. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Americans feeling the pinch for sure. Gordon?
Americans are feeling the pinch. Inflation is absolutely rampant right now. And whether it's at the fuel pump or at the grocery store, we're all feeling the pinch. Now, what happens to democracies when you get into an inflationary spiral? History is not, it doesn't bode well for our future. It's one of those things where you have to look at price controls, you have to have these incredible things that in order to bring inflation in to heal. But one of the number one things is the U.S. government has to stop printing dollars. That's been the fuel for this inflation. But then on top of it, you look at the energy policies coming out of the current administration. They're drying up investment in oil and gas right here in America. We were energy independent just a few years ago, and now we're finding we're energy dependent. We need foreign imports in order to supply just our domestic consumption. If you would free up the pipelines, if you would free up oil and gas exploration, you could solve it. But in the current crisis, you're not going to solve it near term. You're paying the price for the policies that were put into place last year. So will it take a year to unwind it? Will it take 2 years to unwind it? We're going to be feeling this pinch for a long time. Short-term things aren't going to work here. It has to be a long-term effort, and how is that going to happen in the current political divide? It doesn't bode well for the future of democracy.